Every single offseason move from the Phoenix Suns has led back to one man, Matt Ishbia, the new owner of the team. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, what does it mean for the Suns to be in the Matt Ishbia era? Talk about it, break it down, commiserate, vent, whatever it might be. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show, wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks for making Locked On Suns your first listen to start out your Thursday. Become a Locked On everydayer by hitting follow or subscribe wherever you're finding the show, including YouTube. We're free. We're here for you every day. All you have to do is hit follow or subscribe to get locked onto your favorite team, get the news analysis, coverage that you need to be locked onto your favorite team all through the offseason, all through next season, for the rest of time, as long as this show exists. Aaron Edwards is joining, as he does every single week, to talk Suns with us. We're going to talk Matt Ishbia through the whole show today. He gave an interview to Burns and Gambo after the Vogel press conference yesterday. He's been very vocal, very present, very in our faces, and we just want to kind of touch base, level set on where exactly things stand in this new era of ownership that I think we're all still getting our minds around. Today's show is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA, and when you enter the promo code LockedOnNBA, they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with each and every order. We'll talk about them later in the show. Aaron, what were your thoughts on the press conference first and foremost? Because part of what Ishbia has since said is he ended up meeting with 5 different candidates, and honestly, Frank was the clear-cut, obvious choice. What did you make of how he kind of presented himself in that first interaction that he had with fans yesterday?
I think with the way that they put the coaching staff together, I actually believe him. Like, he knew that if he got Vogel, then the only other key piece was possibly keeping Kevin Young. The Fizdale thing was kind of random, but yeah, you kind of want experienced coaches with a squad like this, especially if it's not going to maybe look like this in the future. So yeah, like, I think that Vogel with a team like this that you're building, and you have your 2 stars in place already, we already know what Vogel can do with 2 stars and just being able to build from there. So yeah, I can see him being pretty honest about that part. He seems like he just wants to be part of just the entire process. So I get it.
Do you think that there's any, or like, does it worry you or does it matter to you that it seems like, I don't know where James Jones fell on this, but it definitely seemed like the player side wanted Kevin Young. Obviously, he's still going to be around, so maybe doesn't matter so much, but that he seems like he kind of took over the final decision there. It's like, all right, well, we like Vogel, we like Kevin Young. Can we get them both? I'm willing to spend. Because I think you could look at that as good, that he just sort of made it all happen and spent the money. Or I think Suns fans, maybe based on our PTSD from past guys, we just hear ownership getting involved in it. It just makes us like recoil a little bit. Which side of that do you fall on?
I think it's the other end of the spectrum for involved owners. Like, the one that we had before was involved, but was kind of acted like a broke boy too. So like, yeah, if you have an owner that's involved and cheap at the same time, then I think that's bad. If you have a dude that, in like all intents and purposes, knows ball and he's willing to spend the money. Like, here's a weird anecdote. My friend Isley, I went swimming at his house on Saturday or Sunday, and he said he went to Michigan State, and he said like he was a walk-on at the same time as Matt Ishbia, and Ishbia got the final spot, like right over him. He was right below him, and everybody that was on that team, Ishbia gave jobs to when they got older, and he signed them to his company and all that. And he said he thinks about it all the time because I guess Ishbia was a good dude. He just loved the team atmosphere. and anything to like just stay in a team oriented thing. You've seen the thing on his office and how they like did work down there. He loves team stuff. So we kind of have to assume that when he finally got a team, which is kind of surprising it took him this long to get one, because it seemed like he wanted one for a long time. Like, yeah, he was going to be involved because he really likes being part of a team atmosphere.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, I kind of talked about it a little bit after the Fizdale thing, and I was just doing a little bit on how the Suns are sort of in this spot where they're a pretty modern, like a pretty ideal modern NBA franchise, at least like right now. I mean, you don't know what'll happen with Durant. You don't know. Maybe they screw up this summer, and even like a month from now, I feel different. But two superstar players, a head coach who's executed a championship squad and got superstar players over the finish line before, a kind of like a president of basketball operations guy who seems to be more of like a relationship and like I'm going to empower my employees type rather than like I'm going to, find all these salary cap mechanisms and whatnot. And I think most of the best teams have a guy at the very top like that. And then an owner who is at least involved and willing to spend. Now, not every like typical great NBA team has that, but I think it can work. And I was saying the same exact thing as you, maybe not having the pool buddy anecdote, which I appreciate, but having at least the appreciation for a dude who like, I mean, yeah, I'm not here to like champion businessmen and always trust that anybody who makes money in business is some sort of, genius or like great guy. But I do think somebody who at the very least took a family business into something that like profitable, sold it, and then was immediately like, all right, I'm going to use my money for basketball. Like that at least shows commitment. You know what I mean? Like that at least shows that, like you're saying, the minute he had the money, he kind of seemed to know what he wanted to do. So the idea that you're going to have a guy like that who's just like, oh yeah, you guys do whatever, I'm just here, like that was never really going to happen. So I just think we kind of have to embrace or like make peace with the fact that he's going to be a decision maker in everything that happens. Sometimes it'll be good, sometimes it'll be bad, but that's just kind of like anybody else. I mean, James Jones has L's on his resume. It's not like giving it to the basketball people, so to speak, is like always perfect either.
Yeah, it seems like it was. I think James Jones knows what he's getting into now, but I think it was kind of just an owner being like, "You have my checkbook. I'm willing to do whatever." Like you can tell, Ishbia kind of wanted to win immediately when he got this team. He didn't buy this team to just kind of be a middling franchise and kind of just nobody speaking about us. Like you could tell he wanted us to just kind of be up there. So I think he went to James Jones and was like, "This is gonna look different. Here's the money. You can spend it how you want, but I am going to say some stuff." And I think that's a fair trade when you get to build a team and you have an owner that's opening his checkbook to give you whatever you want, but every once in a while he's going to be annoying sometimes. Yeah, you kind of maybe want to do that. Because before he had an annoying owner who wasn't giving dudes money. And I got to say, being a GM, it's probably a lot easier the other way.
Sure, of course. Yeah, I mean, budget-wise, it's like, hey, I'm going to be involved, but you have a blank check to do what you want versus I'm going to be involved, but you don't get to spend any money. Like that's very different. I think Jones, one of the things that I think made him successful when he got in here originally is connecting with Sarver. Like I think being able to sell Sarver on certain things like spending money on an assistant coaching staff. And even some of the trades that like back then we thought that James Jones like lost, he got rid of D'Anthony Melton for nothing. That guy's a role player now on a championship team. You know what I mean? But even some of that stuff, it was like, hey, you're going to need to spend a little for us to get where we're going. And he was able to sell Sarver on that despite being, as you called him, a broke boy, which I would agree with. It worked, right? Like James Jones was able to get through to him. So I think he can do the same. We'll come back to some of these things in a second, but the one part that I could see I don't even want to say becoming an issue, but that I could see if I'm James Jones or if I'm Frank Vogel, that I could see being a little bit of a hard thing to deal with about a personality like Ishbia is the fact that he came out and gave an interview and just sort of gave his opinion, and it's fine, but gave his opinion to, the local radio station that counteracted some of what Vogel said in his press conference. And like that part is hard. So we'll talk about that next when it comes to Ayton, when it comes to some other things. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player, and in this case, as we're talking about today, owner, is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or get your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. All right, so let's just pick back up on the interview stuff that Ishbia did. I don't believe he was at the introductory press conference. I didn't see him before, during, or after. Not that I think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but he gives this interview to Burns and Gambo right after, Aaron, where he's talking about the Ayton side of things. We talked about what he said about Vogel. That aligned. I mean, James Jones kind of said the same thing. He was our, clear-cut choice. We were really impressed. Obviously, you're going to say all that stuff about the guy who you just hired. But with Ayton, Vogel's talking him up, and then Ishbia comes out and basically says, like, we'll see. Like, I'm not really too sure what's going to happen there. I let James do his work, but we haven't really gone through all of that. We haven't really started to think about it. It'll kind of be TBD. We were joking before we hit record that you have a little bit of experience with this from the Colts side of things. And I think it is a little more prevalent in the NFL just because I think it's a lot bigger of like a bragging rights type of contest or like, pride thing for NFL owners just because that sport is so much bigger, but maybe the NBA is headed there. Just the idea of these owners coming out and just saying like, yeah, I know you just heard that from so-and-so, but here's what I think, and I actually make the final decisions. Like, that seems like it could get old if I'm James Jones or if I'm Frank Vogel.
Yeah, I think this is probably the negative part of having a owner that's a former Hooper. Like, I think he's speaking with Hooper brain. Like, he's being like how me and my friends kind of talk about Ayton. And I don't think you always want that as an owner. Like, Sarver, like, he was just a jerk, and he did it as a jerk. I think that even if it's like in a good way or like a fine way, I think Ishbia still is attacking this in sort of a basketball player way. And you can't always have that.
No, I don't think it's ideal. I mean, yeah, and maybe like, I guess when you put it that way, it makes me wonder if it is just something that will wear off over time of he still probably sees himself kind of as a fan, like, and I think some of these guys that never really wears off, but like Jerry Jones just sees himself as like the king of the Cowboys. So even though he talks a lot, you kind of know that what he's saying is what goes. I don't know if we can say that for sure with Ishbia yet. It seems like obviously he's going to have the final call, which makes sense, but I don't necessarily feel like it's too early to say that he's like superseding Jones in some way that's a problem yet. He might just, like you're saying, be kind of getting ahead of himself with what he's saying because he just likes to talk about this stuff because he's new to it.
Yeah, I think like he's just a basketball player. And sometimes like if you love basketball enough and you happen to be a billionaire that owns a basketball team, if a dude's not getting a rebound, you're going to be kind of off him a little bit. Like if a dude's like kind of checking out in games after you've also been part of a national championship team, I think just some like as an owner, this might happen a couple times where he sees players doing stuff and his Hooper brain is going to turn on and he's going to say some stuff every once in a while.
Yeah, let's not forget that the matchup that Ayton was facing in the series that the Suns lost in the playoffs, this owner we're talking about had to play mind games with Ayton's matchup because Ayton wasn't doing a good enough job of it. Ishbia took it into his own hands to try to get under Jokic's skin because he maybe didn't think Ayton had it in him. So that's who we're talking about here.
Yeah, I can just see him like it's not in the and it's weird. Like we haven't had a owner in this league at least. Like, yeah, Jerry Jones played football in Arkansas and stuff, so he probably thinks he knows a little bit more than he does, which is kind of a problem when it comes to them sometimes, even though he'll spend the money. But I think just having a dude that knows basketball, has been around it, and has always wanted to be a part of it, like he's gonna be weird about this sometimes. He's gonna be one of us, and you're not always gonna want that. You're not always gonna want a dude to have and express those feelings that you're probably feeling sometimes. You got to kind of have some decor when you own a team, but yeah, every once in a while he's gonna be like, yeah, I don't know, like it's Ayton. We know, like we know the deal with him. I'm not sure.
I guess I'll say I prefer it to like, not to be like the type of media person who covers a team who complains about like, well, they didn't talk to me, but like it's not even me trying to get inside of anybody or anything like that. It was just very much a like paranoia with Sarver. And it wasn't just him, it was everybody. Nobody was friendly. No one was trying to do interviews like this, even with Arizona sports. I'm not even trying to say I wish I could have done interviews, but we all remember that era. Like it was just everybody is paranoid. Everybody's like the whole world is against us. Anytime Sarver would speak, anytime it just was so negative and whatever. So it's like I'll take this even if maybe some things get screwed up from an interpersonal standpoint as a result of it, as some of those other situations can show us. But we'll see how it goes. What I wanted to ask about Ayton, to stick on him for a second, and then we can zoom out even more in the last segment, is just where do you think this leaves us with him? Because I didn't mention this, but Vogel also did a subsequent interview with Wolf and Luke, I think, yesterday too, where he doubled down on his support for Ayton that he expressed in the press conference with a bunch of different questions that he answered. So that's like him getting another opportunity to maybe hedge a little bit, and he still didn't do it. So I think Vogel really thinks he can work with Ayton and seems to want him, and Ishbia is kind of throwing cold water on that. So what do you think this all means? Is he going to be here next season? Is it just sort of we'll see what the trade market looks like? What do you think?
I think he's going to be here. Like we said this in text, we said this on the show like weeks ago. A coach is going to see the size, the arms, the athleticism, just the overall physique and all that, and they're going to be like, I can fix this dude. Like I'm the person that can do it. And we knew it was going to happen. And regardless of who got hired, I think the second you see Ayton and you see some of the stuff he can do when he wants to do it, then yeah, you're going to talk yourself into it. And I'm not shocked at all that Vogel said this. I was sure that it was going to happen. I was sure that he was going to come back because you see him and you think you can fix it. It's just a thing that was going to happen. And yeah, Ayton's just he was always going to fool somebody, and maybe they can fix him. So I probably can't say fool, but I just knew this was going to happen. And Vogel saying it like was not a shock to me.
For sure. So we did talk about it before, but it was hypothetical. I don't think you and I definitely haven't even privately talked about now that it is Vogel. It wasn't a surprise to hear him say it. Okay. Do you think that's the right call? Do you feel like now that we know who the coach is and his history with guys like that, does that make you any more optimistic, or does it change your mind? Because I know generally speaking, you want him gone, but does it give you any more hope? Like, okay, well, we've seen him do this before, so maybe it is worth it.
Yeah, I mean, like if anybody is gonna turn a dude with like a questionable motor every once in a while and give him like something to play for, maybe it's Vogel. AD disappears. I mean, he still disappears every once in a while. He got Dwight Howard a championship. He got JaVale McGee a championship. Like he got all these dudes, Rajon Rondo. Like he got all these dudes that kind of check out sometimes, and he got them to come together for one stretch to win a ring. And I think Kyle Kuzma, like he can do it if he like if he has people involved and that really want to. And if anybody can do it, it's Vogel. He's got like dudes that were historically known for checking out every once in a while to play for a couple months and win a ring. So yeah, I think Vogel was always going to think that he can change Ayton because he's changed some of the worst people at this.
I think I would still obviously explore the trade market. And I think that's what Ishbia was getting at. Let's not get ahead of ourselves and just like shut the door on people making offers to us to try to move things around. It would be dumb to just be like, all right, we hired Vogel, so, no one call us, we're good. But I guess what Vogel getting hired did for me is it made the barrier, or like the baseline of trade that I would have to see if I'm the Suns to want to say yes, it maybe made that a little higher. Like if I thought, Nick Nurse was going to be the coach who like honestly seems to not even like big men, then I would have been like, yeah, take the first good deal you can get, right? And like move on. But now that it's a guy who has more of a history, then I'm like, all right, you kind of probably want a pretty good offer if you're going to move on. You know what I mean? Like the one that I did in the best case scenario offseason show I did, which was like Rozier, Cody Martin, and a first round pick. Like, I don't know if I would say yes to that now that I know it's Vogel. I was doing that show kind of assuming it would be Kevin Young. So that's where my mind's at. We'll see we haven't really heard anything concrete in terms of such and such team is interested or any of that type of stuff, really. I mean, there's been some like shady, who knows who this person is that's tweeting this thing types of stuff, but nothing real. So we'll see. Let's talk about, no, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying like Vogel likes his bigs to play and he's looking at one of the more athletic ones in the league. So this was just going to happen.
Yeah. And I don't think he's Anthony Davis. I don't even think he's Roy Hibbert because he's not 7'2" or whatever. But like, I would imagine Vogel has a plan and that might help. We'll see. All right, let's zoom out again back to kind of the future here. I want to throw some James Jones stuff off of you that I've been thinking about. And this is going to be the first off season and the first full season with Ishbia. It's already been a whirlwind, but we'll talk about kind of what this future might hold with a guy this involved and this committed running the show. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by Bird Dogs. We all got a batch of Bird Dogs here at the Locked On Podcast Network to try them out and tell you guys how much we love them. And I would not lie to you. I really, really have been impressed. They have athletic stuff, workout stuff, and they have more like casual around the house or like, quick day out types of things. Both are good. Both are very loose or not loose, but breathable, stretchable, comfortable, all the things that you really always want, but especially in Arizona. I know you guys know what I'm talking about in terms of sweat and just feeling gross if the right thing isn't on, especially during the day when the sun is out. We've gotten lucky with weather, but we all know it's coming. You want to have something that fits you well, looks good, but also gets you that comfort and support that you need. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA to try them for yourself. Enter the promo code LockedOnNBA. Again, for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order as well. So try out their comfortable, stretchable workout gear or their casual at birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that promo code LockedOnNBA to get a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take those Bird Dogs off, we promise. All right, let's close out the show, Aaron. So is there anything you're hoping for, expecting, looking around at Mark Cuban or whoever you want to point to, if it's an NFL guy where you're like, this is what's coming? We know there's a G League team on the horizon. I know Suns fans are excited about that. That's not the most sexy, glamorous thing. If you actually ever went to a game in Prescott Valley, you can, comment in the, YouTube comments. I would be surprised if anyone did that. So like, in theory, it's nice. We'll see how much it matters. But what would you tell me if I was like, we have a billionaire owner now who actually cares here in Phoenix? What do you expect? What do you want?
Actually, I was thinking about the G League thing this morning because it's also Phoenix. Like, yes, we haven't had one in a while, but Phoenix can turn the most random thing into a party. And that's what, like, I can see kind of happening with the G League thing. Like, if you just hit a game and it can just be like the party of the league because Phoenix doesn't really take stuff like that serious. That's why we have like a golf tournament that's insane out here because we kind of just turned it into that. And everybody was just like, all right, I guess this is just going to be that now. So yeah, I can see a G League team and like the whole entire like G League like vibe being kind of a party because Phoenix kind of does that to some sporting events sometimes. But other than that, like, yeah, I don't really expect you can tell Ishbia is gonna attack this head on and try to make his like mark really early. So yeah, I can see anything kind of happening when it comes to him.
I do think it'll make a difference with the G League thing for it to actually be here, because that's
Yeah.
part of it, right? It was at some like tiny. I mean, it wasn't. It was actually a pretty solid arena for randomly sitting in Prescott Valley, but no one was going to drive up there from the Valley to go see a G League game, especially because most of the time that it mattered when we were going through the rebuild here in Phoenix, nobody actually went to the G League because all the bad players or like developing players, they actually just played for the NBA team. So like no one ever marquee players ever actually went through that program. So I think that matters. So yeah, maybe it also being in Phoenix would help it actually be a moneymaker, which might make you actually commit resources to it in a real way. I think the best teams use the G League. I'm not trying to minimize it. I guess I'm just minimizing how the Suns used it before. Not going to lie, I would rather Matt Ishbia spend more money to bring an MLS team here, especially after the news today. Forget the G League. Let's just get an opportunity to see Messi that's not going to LA. But conversation for a different time. Matt, call me if you're listening. We can talk. I'll be your like marketing intern or something on that one. But I guess where I would look is some of the stuff like the TV deal. Just ways where I feel like he's going to come in, and like a lot of these new owners do stuff like this. It's just, let me see how I can. Yeah, I like the word disrupt gets made fun of because tech guys like to use it for stupid stuff like making AI expand artwork. But like that, that idea is probably what he's going to try to do. The TV deal is one thing. They're in a legal battle over it now, but like, what can he do there? What can he do to, with the Mercury? Can he go get some fines like Joe Tsai did with the Liberty for flying charter to go to like a wine tasting to celebrate a win and stuff? Like, I just kind of expect like random stuff like that to turn up where it's like, oh, he did this thing, spent like an absurd amount of money on it, and now like he's getting sued. Like I would say a couple of those might spring up before he settles in the next few years.
Yeah, he very obviously wants to be known as the cool owner, so I can see him just randomly doing a bunch of stuff like that now. Like he wants to be looked at as cool, like that's without question. So he's either going to be cool to the outside world or his team. And with the TV thing, I think that's huge because that's like pretty much attacking one of the biggest things in sports. Like the TV deals is pretty much part of the CBA and all that stuff. And him just been like, I want everybody in Phoenix to be able to watch these games. I want everybody to be able to see them. Is huge because that's kind of like one of the biggest problems in sports right now is not everybody can see their teams.
I don't want to go too far with it, but one of the things that was also cool to me about the TV deal is it kind of demonstrated, and maybe this is just people in the organization who already worked here who were able to kind of be in his ear about it, but it demonstrated an understanding of the community here in a way, because it's like we have a weird setup where Phoenix is huge, and even people who we think of as living in Phoenix kind of live in a rural area, but we consider them being part of, you know what I mean? And then also beyond Phoenix, the state itself, like, it's just sporadic little towns and stuff aside from that. So that was smart and not just like a money play, but it was like, hey, this is a problem. Let me try to do something about it. All right. On the James Jones side, though, last question or last thing we can hit on is I did a little bit on, and I credited Espo at PHNX because they had a little bit of a conversation about this the other day too, with David Fizdale coming down from the front office to be in the coaching staff and just some of the hires they've made in general. I know a lot of people talked about, oh, is he going to hire Sam Presti or Isaiah Thomas or somebody like that to like sit atop all of this? And I'm not ruling that out. That would fit in a lot of what we're talking about with the splashiness. But I also think there's a world where James Jones actually becomes the guy who sits atop this as the president and not the GM. And the investment goes to just building out a really big front office with more of the lower level people, like the middle management types of people. What do you think of that idea? Because I feel like that could be another way we see this go, where it's like James just kind of has the vision and the people skills and the management skills, but the day-to-day is run by whoever the next really smart cap guy is or scout is or whatever it might be, that Ishbia is like, oh, that'll really, do the types of splashy stuff that I want if we can go get the next such and such and just spend like 20 million on our front office, but James only makes 5, but the rest of it, you know what I mean? Something like that.
Yeah, I can see that happening, especially because like, didn't we already have one of like the smaller front offices in the league when Sarver was here? So yeah, I think going from that to what we can potentially go to is the hard part is kind of done. James Jones built the team. Like he built us up from being a lottery squad. We're gonna have to math this thing up now. Like it's gonna pretty much be all numbers to this point. And having a bigger office and having more numbers guys and James Jones just continuing the relationship stuff just seems easier because the hard part is done. You got stars. Like now you got to math it. And James Jones probably doesn't want to do that this entire time. So yeah, you're probably going to need more dudes to do that for you.
So I know Ishbia has been big on, the Mel Tucker thing. He got credit for some of the stadium renovations and different things, very much in the sports world at MSU. I think his next donation, if I'm allowed to give him some financial advice, should be like a big one for the law school or the MBA program or something like that. And then just kind of, slide a nonchalant note and say, hey, like we got some internships. We have some entry-level stuff. If anyone's interested, like, got some scholarships created here for all of you. Not nice apartment waiting for you in Phoenix. If you're interested, like come be our next data savant out in Phoenix and we'll reward you handsomely. But yeah, it's all the stuff that's hard to know. And that's kind of what's tough about it. But I actually think that's a position that Jones is suited for better than like what he was doing when he first got here, where it was really like, make this trade, make this signing, get this draft pick, all that stuff. Because that's where he's screwed up a little bit. But I think you can't really argue that he's brought good people in, seems to have a good idea of who he wants to be working with. And obviously his relationships around the league are like the number one thing he has.
Yeah. And I think, he's cool with LeBron and all those people. I think the relationship part of the NBA is kind of what it comes down to. KD didn't go to the Warriors for money. He was cool with the players. Like, I think it kind of just comes down to the relationship part at the end of the day. And once you have the key pieces to your team, then it just becomes the business part. And yeah, like maybe he might like that part of it, but I think having a bigger office would just help with that part of it, because that's pretty much what the Suns are gonna be now, is filling in the pieces and figuring out who's MLE contracts and vet minimums and all that. And I don't think James Jones wants to just grind that out for the next couple of years.
No, and I mean, like, not to be too like blunt about it, but that's kind of where he's made his mistakes, right? So it's like, yeah, I mean, even whatever he wants to do, I don't really care. It's like, hey, James, like we'll give you a nice raise, you get to be in charge of everybody, but let's maybe get you off the, college basketball scouting schedule here and just get the most out of your mortgage here in Phoenix and see the family a little more. And you can just kind of, correspond via phone with some of those people. But yeah, I mean, I think Suns fans need to start seeing this as much more of a Clippers and Heat. Maybe not the success. I mean, the Clippers haven't had success, but I'm not saying that they're going to follow in the path of the Heat and just be in the finals every year, but I just mean it in terms of like well invested, smart people doing their job. That's what the Suns are going to need to be shooting for, rather than like, can we nail this draft pick, or, can we get this veteran back in our, like that's over. It's going to be much more like these other groups. We'll see how it goes, but that's where we're headed. All right. That'll wrap us up for the day. Hoping to get somebody on to close out the week to talk Frank Vogel, X's and O's, what he's good at, what he's bad at, what Suns fans can expect. So everydayers, you can look forward to that tomorrow. In the meantime, check out Locked On NBA. Get that show wherever you're getting this show. They'll keep you up to date on the finals, offseason stuff, and more. And I will catch you guys tomorrow. Okay.